Hello there, and today I'm going to be giving you a quick overview and tour of the main new features of the brand new 2016 MacBook Pro. This is the 13-inch model without the touch bar. So let's get started with the box of the product. It's quite similar to every other generation in the recent years, which is not surprising, but it does include a new picture of the MacBook, of course, and also Apple's new San Francisco font on the MacBook Pro logo. So this being the entry level of the new MacBook Pro series without the touch bar, we have a relatively modest set of specifications, but they're still good for the average computer user. We have 8GB of DDR3 RAM memory, a 2GHz Intel Core i5 processor, which is the Skylake generation. We have 64MB of EDRAM for the Intel integrated video, which is the Iris Graphics 540, which we should get some impressive figures of that. We have a massively upgraded 256GB PCIe solid-state drive included, which is of course a large upgrade from last year's 128GB as standard, and we have two Thunderbolt 3 ports on the left hand side, and we have the headphone socket. Included with the new MacBook is the 61W USB-C power adapter with the single USB-C port on the front of it. It's surprisingly large for the amount of power the computer draws. And of course you have the detachable cable for the USB-C slot on the front, which would actually save a lot of money if the cable breaks, as these adapters are very expensive on their own. One interesting thing to note is you're actually losing the cable organizer clips, which you can find on the old MagSafe adapters, which is quite an inconvenience, but I guess you can live without it. The adapter does have support for interchangeable plugins for international use, but doesn't include an extension cable. So here is the MacBook Pro itself. It's in space grey and features the same reflective Apple logo as the MacBooks due to the thinness of the display. Compared to the iPad mini 4th generation, you can see how thin this machine really is. Here are the two Thunderbolt 3 ports on the computer. They're backwards compatible with USB-C and also can charge the computer. Thankfully, Apple has opted to keep the 3.5mm headphone jack. Here is a tour of the rear of the computer. As you can see, the brand new metal injection molded hinge makes a nice uniform look across the computer. Due to the weighted hinge, you can open the MacBook Pro with one hand. The first thing you'll notice is the gorgeous 13.3-inch Retina display, with a wider colour gamut this time, meaning that reds and greens will be much more vivider than last generation displays. One thing that has returned from much earlier generations of the MacBook Pro is the MacBook Pro logo underneath the display. The thin keys are achieved through Apple's new butterfly mechanism keyboard. This possibly has to be the largest trackpad I've ever seen on a laptop. It's completely made of glass and is one of Apple's Force Touch trackpad. The large area of the MacBook's trackpad provides a natural surface for performing gestures on and is very comfortable to use. The speakers have been moved to the sides of the keyboard on the 13-inch model and are much improved and louder from the previous models. The new PCIe SSD storage is much faster than the previous generation, ours achieving write speeds of around 1,300 megabytes a second and read speeds of over 2,000 megabytes a second. I do actually think that this is a bottleneck of the program I'm using to test. And finally, NovaBench gave me a score of 707. So finally, to summarise what I've pretty much said, this MacBook is a significant upgrade from the previous models, and even without the touch bar, the entry-level model is perfectly fine for most users. Stay tuned for a full review very shortly, and thank you for watching, and make sure you rate, comment and subscribe.